Welcome to Let's Talk Merrimack. I'm your host for today, Mary Beth Raven. I've been a resident of Merrimack for over 30 years, raised my 2 kids here, and still live here with my husband. Now, the goal of this show is to talk about things that concern Merrimack residents and encourage you to get involved in the town. Today's show focuses on the experience of being a New Hampshire state representative. And I want to provide a little bit of background on this. Our town of Merrimack has 8 state representatives. We currently have 5 Republicans and 3 Democrats, and each representative serves a 2-year term. Now, New Hampshire has the largest state legislature in the entire United States, despite the fact that we're a very small state. We've got 400 people in our House of Representatives, and it operates as what's called a citizens legislature. And that means representatives basically are volunteers because they only earn about $100 a year plus gas mileage. So today I am joined by one of our state reps, Wendy Thomas, and she assumed office on December 7th of 2022, and her term runs through December 2026. And she previously served from 2018 to 2020. So Wendy, what would you like to do to introduce yourself and give folks a little bit more information about who you are?
Oh, okay. So Wendy Thomas, and you mentioned my terms. I was voted in on 2018. Then I was out for a term, and I've been in 2 terms since then. I've lived in Merrimack since 1991. 6 children, have gone through the public school system. I have had many dogs. And volunteered
And
throughout
a
the
husband
school.
even.
Oh yes, I do have a husband. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Mark Nozell. He's some people may know him. He is a professional Santa Claus. He's also a software engineer, but very involved in the town.
All right. So let's start off with having you describe your role as a state representative. You know, what responsibilities does a state rep have?
So ultimately, the reason that we have state reps is they make law. So we vote on law, either a bill passes into law or a bill doesn't pass into law. So that's the ultimate goal. But the way that we get there is that we're assigned into committees. Mm-hmm. And the bills, before we vote on them in session, which is the chambers, which people have, the big chamber where we all sit, we listen to these ideas. They come to our committees, and they're presented to us, and we get to ask questions, and then people testify. They either for the bill or against the bill, and we get to ask as many questions as we want until we understand what the bill is like, and then we vote on that in the committee, and then it comes to the floor, and we either pass it to the Senate, or we kill it on the floor, or we table it. There's some other
So does
options.
it always go to the floor, or if you vote on it in a committee and the committee can decide this bill is frivolous and it won't go to the floor? Like,
No,
does everything go to the floor?
Everything goes to the floor.
Everything goes to the floor.
But we might all decide that this is a crazy bill. We don't like it, and so it gets put on the consent calendar as something called ITL, mm-hmm. which means inexpedient to legislate. And at the beginning of session, if you ever go up there and watch session, they'll say, you know, we vote on the consent calendar, and that's just a voice vote, and we all go yay or aye. And all of those are just voted, you know, we all agree. So you can get like 20 bills passed at once.
Okay.
You know, so those are things that we agree on unanimously. So those are either we agree that they should go to the Senate without a discussion, or we agree that they should not go to the Senate without a discussion.
Okay. So what motivated you to run for office in the first place?
Oh, you know, it was the PFAS in Merrimack. First, I was involved with the Kinder Morgan, the pipeline, mm-hmm. Getting through Merrimack, and you know, that was the first David and Goliath story in Merrimack that I was involved in. You know, this big corporation was going to rip our town apart to put a pipeline
literally
through.
Rip it.
Yeah,
dig it up. Yeah.
You know, and it was not fair. It was, you know, they were just going to use our town as a highway underground to transport their product. And so we, you know, that project stopped, and then I heard about, you know, something in the water, and I thought it was related to Kinder Morgan. So I went to a meeting about that, found out it was about something called PFAS, and another big problem in Merrimack. And so I just, without really even knowing what a state rep was, I decided to run because it was bigger than what we could do at the town level.
At the town level, okay. Very interesting. Okay. So now that this is like 8 years later,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what specific issues are you currently focused on, and why do you think that they're important to your district and to New Hampshire as a whole?
Well, I still do PFAS bills. So one of the things with bills, you cannot put a bill in that is specific to your town, specific to a company, or specific to a person. You just can't do that.
Okay.
Those bills will get killed. So I put, originally when we were putting PFAS bills in, people perceived them as being bills that were specific to Merrimack. However, we have discovered that PFAS is all over New Hampshire. So
Right,
now they're
Litchfield and
right,
other
and they're in
towns.
landfills and that kind of stuff. So now they're being more accepting of PFAS bills. So I put PFAS bills in. Last term, we banned. It was the bill that I put in. We banned ski board and boat wax that contain PFAS in it, and so that helps Merrimack, but it helps everybody in New Hampshire.
Right. Because so we're talking about the wax I might put on my water skis or on my snow skis
Right.
downhill, which then leaches into the land, or if we're talking Lake Winnipesaukee,
Well,
that
it goes right into the water system.
into the water.
Right into the
Okay.
water system. And the skis, it goes right into the snow, which melts and goes right into the water system.
system.
And then this term, I submitted a bill, and I still think it's a really good bill, but people felt uncomfortable with it because of the topic. It was to ban. There are two types of condoms that have PFAS. They intentionally add PFAS in the condoms. And there are some lubricants that intentionally add PFAS. And so I wanted those banned. We don't need those in New Hampshire. And we never ban anything unless there's a safe alternative to use. Mm-hmm. But that bill was killed, not because it wasn't a good bill, but they were uncomfortable with the topic.
Well, anything to do with sex is
I
uncomfortable
know.
in Puritan New England, right?
Exactly.
Right. But since you've brought it up, are there safe products? I mean,
there's
to
many.
recommend? I mean, should we
Yes.
be avoiding certain? I mean, we know that PFAS has been linked to certain types of cancer, like testicular cancer and other
Exactly.
kinds of cancer. So anybody listening to this should check their products if they use them, because you don't want to get cancer.
Right.
So are there any that are safe?
Yeah, so there's one sub-brand of Trojans, and I can list it on my state rep page, and KY jelly, actually, that's very popular. That has PFAS in it. People should not be using that one.
And I know we're getting really specific here, but if you're looking at an ingredients list, it might not just say PFAS,
It does not.
right? There's a whole list
right,
of
it
things
has
we
to be
need to look for,
tested.
right?
It has to be tested.
Yeah.
So these are identified through a lab. So it's
okay.
very difficult to find these products.
The good ones, you mean?
The bad ones also.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Interesting. How do you balance like the interest of your constituents who, like, I'm a constituent, I'm very interested. I don't want to use products that might give me cancer. So how do you balance the interest with people like, your constituents then with the larger state or even national interests?
It's a balancing act. Again, you can't do, as far as bills, you can't do a bill that's specific, again, to the town, a company, or a person. But everything that I do, I keep in mind, what's good for Merrimack. And the votes that I do, I keep in mind Merrimack. So very often, Nancy Murphy, who is on the town council, she is in touch with the chief of police. And so we'll get some bills that are have to do with safety or something like that. And she'll tell me that the chief of police would prefer that we vote this way for the town of Merrimack. And so we always vote that way. If he wants us to vote that way, we do. So things like that. I know recently we had the ICE detention center, and that was specific to Merrimack. It didn't really have anything to do with the State House, but I got very involved in that for the town of Merrimack.
And there was no specific legislation that you introduced. Was there anything you did at the State House, or did you just get involved because you were more of a public figure as a state rep?
For the ICE facility?
Yeah, for the ICE facility.
Yeah, I got involved. They picked me because of my experience as a state rep, and they knew that I could be a voice that people would listen to. So so I gave speeches, I wrote op-eds, I was out front. But it wasn't just me. Like, people will come up to me and they'll say, "Thank you for stopping the ICE facility." It wasn't me. There was a group of about 100 people behind me. And, some of these people, you will never know their names because they're anonymous behind me. And they worked very hard. But it took many villages to pull that one off.
So, as a state rep, now the ICE facility involvement sort of came partly because you were state rep, because you were a public figure and people knew that you could be a good spokesperson. But aside from that, as a state rep, how many hours a week do you typically work?
Well, okay, it depends on the time of year. So our session goes from January to June because in our state constitution, at June, the gentlemen farmers are released to take care of their farms. So that's why it stops in June. So the beginning of the year is when we listen to all of the bills. And this year we had 1,000 bills. So we were really busy. So January, February, mid-March, it's crazy busy. And I was in a busy committee, Science, Tech, and Energy. We get all of the energy bills, we get all of the utility bills, we get all of the renewable bills. So Monday and Tuesday, we were typically there for about 8 hours listening to bills. And then I put forward a lot of bills, and so I was typically up there 4 days a week.
Now, is every rep expected to put forward bills?
No.
Or are they discouraged from put forward because there's 400 reps? If everyone puts together a bill, then we have more bills than we can deal with?
Yeah, no. So what they do is they say when you're a first-term rep to just not put bills forward and to just watch the process, because it is tough. You typically get elected and you have no idea what's going on.
Right, because you're not a professional politician.
Right.
And neither is most of the people who are in this state legislature.
Right. So the first year, they want you to sit behind and just watch everything. But the first year, 3 of us ran as the water warriors, which was Nancy, Kathy Stack, and myself. And we knew we didn't have time to sit there and watch what was going on. So we put forward bills, not even knowing the process, but we knew that we had to do it immediately because the town of Merrimack was in trouble. So we hit the ground running, literally running.
Wow.
We didn't know what we were doing, but we got it done.
So some really naive questions. Do you get an office up there?
No.
Okay.
And that's funny because people will call me and they'll say, patch me through to your receptionist. I'll make an appointment and I'll say, "You're talking to her." And then they'll say, "Okay, where's your office? I'll meet you in your office." And I'm in my office. I'm in my car. We don't get offices.
So state reps don't get office, and you get no secretarial support. Like, you don't have an assistant or anything.
No,
You're just
no.
doing it all
The
on your own.
senators will have help. So there's like one person for every 2 senators who will help them, but we don't get any.
Okay. So, what's the balance of time spent between being in Concord, the state capital, versus working at home in your home district or meeting with constituents?
So again, it depends on the time of year. So the beginning, January, February, March, middle March, you're up at the State House just a ton. And then for the rest of the year till June, you have some time. So you spend it at home. You're preparing stuff. You're going to meetings. You're doing that kind of stuff in town. You're going to events. in the summertime, just because you're not going up to the State House doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. That's when we do the parades, we do the barbecues, we do, this summer is going to be a campaign summer, so we're going to do canvassing, going to the, houses nonstop.
Okay. So you said, the session is from like January to June, and in the summertime you're doing either campaigning or just being out in the community and stuff like that. And what about the fall?
The fall. Well,
are you meeting up in Concord, or is it just in a campaign year? Are you mainly just campaigning?
Well, the primary is in September, and then the election is in November.
Right.
So it's really just campaigning.
Up the fall. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think is the most challenging part of managing your time between your legislative work and your personal life?
I think I love being a state rep. I love it. I love the skills that I've learned. I love the people that I've met. I think one of the most challenging things, though, is if you're a state rep, you can't really travel between the January and June because you have to be there, especially if the numbers are close. And they're not as close this term.
By that you mean Democrat and
Yes,
Republican
Democrat
numbers.
and Republican. We're down 40 seats this time, so it's not as important. But last term we weren't.
And I
down.
think I haven't mentioned you're a Democrat. So when you say we're down 40 seats, the Democrats have 40 fewer seats than the Republicans do in the House.
Right.
Okay.
Last term it was closer, so we couldn't travel at all. It is difficult sometimes. I belong to Merrimack Friends and Family, and they have a lot of activities, and they go out to lunch and everything. And sometimes, I see them planning these activities. The seniors are planning activities. The Historical Society is planning activities, and I see them, and it's so close and yet so far, So sometimes that's difficult. I want to be with my friends, and it's a choice. Nobody made me be a state rep, but sometimes that can be difficult.
Okay. So what skills do you feel that are most important for your role as a state rep?
I think the most important one is communication. I have been a journalist, I have been a tech writer, and I have been an instructional designer. And I think that those three skills are what really helped me be a state rep, because an instructional designer, you have to identify your audience, and you have to take information and break it down into bite-sized pieces so that people can understand it. As a journalist, you have to keep asking questions until you understand to the tiniest degree, what people are talking about. You have to pull out that information. And as a tech writer, you just have to figure out the flow of information. So, I think that those are the three skills that I brought to the table that have really, really helped me.
Okay. So do you work with other representatives, both from the town and from the rest of the state? And how important is bipartisan work as far as you're concerned?
So on session day, Nancy, Rosemary, and I always keep in touch with each other. And I do work with a lot of the Democrats that are up there. We co-sponsor each other's bills. I have worked with some of the Republicans. There was David Nagel asked me to co-sponsor a bill. It was on Hannah Dustin. And it got killed, but it was a good bill because it started the conversation about, there was controversy about the statue, and it was considered disrespectful to the family of Hannah Dustin. So he didn't expect it to go far, but it started a good conversation, so that was good. I've worked with Kristen Perez, who is a Republican, on her PFAS bill to hold companies accountable. So that's good. Right now we have a lot of Free Staters up at the State House, and I just don't agree with a lot of what their values are. So, I can't get on board with some of their crypto mining bills. They want data centers all over New Hampshire. I can't get behind that. They want to kill renewables in New Hampshire.
Here's a question, right? So you say you can't get behind it, but what if you get calls from constituents who are in favor of it? How do you balance that? And is it ever possible, do you ever change your mind based on constituent input?
Yeah, I can't. Well, I have changed my mind sometimes, but it's more on testimony that I hear in committees. People send me email all the time and ask me to vote this way or that way. And people know that I'm a Democrat. They elected me as a Democrat, and they know what my values are as a Democrat. So when I vote from the values of a Democrat. So, there are people that will always be upset with how I vote, but they elected me, so it shouldn't come as a surprise.
Okay. So let's play a little quick, fun questions just to get to know you as a person. I think I know the answer to this one based on what you've already said, but cats or dogs?
Oh my God, dogs.
Okay.
I have 2 rescues right now, Bailey and Odie.
Okay. And what's the best sandwich?
I had it at King Arthur in Vermont. It is brie cheese with slices of green apple, and it has to be on a French baguette. Very simple, but mwah.
Is that like the King Arthur flour place? Like,
Yeah.
did they make their own bread?
Yeah.
Oh, it was probably the freshest bread. That's what did it.
Yeah, it's magnificent.
Interesting. Okay. So what advice would you give someone who's thinking of running for office?
The same advice I give to young married couples that are thinking about having a baby. There is no good time to have it. Just go ahead and do it. You can think about it and think about it and think about it, and you'll just talk yourself out of doing it. If you have the desire, and it is a calling, it is definitely a calling because there is some sacrifice to it. If you have the calling, just do it. There's no good time, there's no bad time. Just do it.
All right. Well, that's perfect considering that the purpose of this show is to get people to be more involved in the town. One way, if you want to consider it, is to consider running for state rep or other office, although we just had our elections for the town. So thank you so much for your time, Wendy.
My
I
pleasure.
really appreciate it. And I hope maybe we'll have you on as a guest some other time, perhaps in a panel of issues or something like that. So
Absolutely.
have a great
My
day.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay.